Well, hello to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Remeisha Shade. Of course, it is the very first day of hurricane season, which runs, of course, from June 1st all the way to November 30th. So if we could switch over to Links 1, then I could show you what we have in store for this hurricane season. It does appear as though it could be pretty active with above normal numbers of storms likely for our area and really for much of the Atlantic, much of the Caribbean. There could certainly be some pretty nasty, dangerous storms developing, and we want to make sure that you definitely are prepared and try to get through this hurricane season safely. So once again, today is day one of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. Of course, it runs all the way through the end of November, and we've had a couple of very important forecasts already come out from Colorado State University, from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and they both call for a very busy hurricane season. In fact, I want to take you through it and show you what we are expecting. The NOAA forecast, which came out not long ago, calls for anywhere from 17 to 25 named storms. That is well above the average of 14 for this season. 8 to 13 of those likely becoming hurricanes, and out of those, 4 to 7 expected to become major hurricanes. At least that's what the forecasters at NOAA are thinking. So all of those numbers are above the norm. Now, we did have the forecast from Colorado State University meteorologists earlier in the year, and once again, it is not great news. An above normal number of named storms, around 23. They call for 11 of those becoming hurricanes, and out of those, 5 becoming major hurricanes. So that is also above that average, which was taken from 1991 all the way through 2020. Here's the good news. Day one of our 2024 Atlantic hurricane season is starting off pretty quiet for the Atlantic. No tropical activity expected for the next 7 days across the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf. So that is certainly some good news, but some models are indicating as we get into the middle of June, late June, we could start to see more action. So of course, we will be monitoring things closely. Now, why are we expecting an above normal tropical season? Well, we've got very warm water temperatures out in the Gulf, out in the Caribbean, parts of the Atlantic. You can see some of those temps in the 80s, those sea surface temps for parts of the Gulf. So when you have water that warm, that allows those storms to develop fairly quickly. Another factor will be the fact that we are switching gradually from an El Nino phase to a La Nina phase, and that usually means less wind shear. So as those tropical systems start to build and grow, they can really hold together. That wind shear really helps to kind of rip them apart, tear them apart, especially in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and then they kind of weaken. But when you have less wind shear, that means usually more tropical activity because they're able to hold together longer, and that gives a higher chance of some of those reaching maybe the east coast of the U.S. and maybe even the Gulf Coast. We don't want that. That's the last thing we want. Hopefully we won't have anything like that this season, but of course it is something we are monitoring closely. If we do start to get some named storms, this is the official list for this season. We'll start off with Alberto, and then we'll have Beryl, Chris, Debbie, Ernesto, Francine, and Gordon. And the last name on the list for this season for the Atlantic would be William. Now, you're looking at this list and you're counting 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21 names, but some of those forecasts call for more named storms than that. So what happens if we run out of names? Well, there's a plan for that. As you know, some years ago, we did go to the Greek alphabet when we ran out of names, alpha, beta, gamma, but we're not going to be doing that this season. The World Meteorological Organization does have a secondary list of names. So if we do go through those 21 names, another list of names will come out and we'll start using those. Hopefully we won't have to do that, but that is the plan. Now let's talk about formation zones. We are now officially into the month of June, and typically June is a fairly quiet month for hurricane season, but as we look at our probable formation zones, if we were to get anything, it looks like the eastern Gulf of Mexico would be the area to watch. So some of the areas at highest risk, some of the locations that could be impacted would be Tampa, Miami. We could have systems forming here and then head to that western Atlantic coast. But western Florida coast rather, but we are going to be watching all of the Atlantic, all of the Caribbean, and all of the Gulf, but we do have that higher chance for tropical systems developing in the eastern Gulf of Mexico during the month of June. And like I said, they could potentially impact parts of that Florida Gulf Coast. But typically for the month of June, the number of systems that develop definitely on the low side, but the eastern Gulf will certainly be an area to watch a little bit closer. But fortunately, we don't have anything developing right now, so that is certainly some good news. As far as our tropical outlook for the eastern Pacific, we do actually have one system that we are monitoring. This one is rolling to the west, south of Mexico, west of Central America. Only a 10% chance for this to survive. It's basically an elongated area of low pressure, fairly disorganized, and the models and the National Hurricane Center only giving this about a 10% chance for survival as it pushes to the west, away from Central America and away from Mexico. So that is the only system, and like I said, that is in the eastern Pacific. So overall, nothing to worry about, at least for our area as far as from the tropics right now. But of course, it's just day one of a very long hurricane season. We've got 6 months to go. So of course, we will be here closely watching the tropics and updating you if anything is starting to pop out there. Now, let's bring things closer to home because it's already been a pretty active morning and afternoon across southeast Texas. We just got rid of a severe thunderstorm watch that was supposed to stay in place until 6 p.m. You can still see that severe thunderstorm watch still in place off to the east in Beaumont through 6 p.m., but all of the Houston area has now been taken out of that severe thunderstorm watch because our threat for severe weather continues to decrease. We did, though, have some showers and storms develop, pop up, roll from the south to the north. In fact, driving into work, I drove through a lot of that heavy rain coming in, and it was a pretty rough commute out there with traffic almost at a standstill. So that's typically how it is when you get into one of those storms. It's going to be pretty slow, and that's exactly what happened. So we did have a few severe thunderstorm warnings. In fact, we had reports of a wind gust near 60 miles per hour around the Dayton area in Liberty County. That's when we did have a severe thunderstorm warning there, and I clearly saw that very strong wind showing up on our radar as we checked out the inside of that storm, the storm winds. So fortunately, all of that has moved out. We're still left with a few showers up to the north of Houston. Not much going on, but up around the Corrigan area, just a little bit of rain still up towards that region, and some heavier downpours still going on near and north of Huntsville and up towards Riverside, approaching the city of Trinity. Now, let's talk about how much rain we've had just over the last 12 hours, and it's been quite a bit in isolated spots. In fact, close to 7 inches of rain showing up just over the last 12 hours, and that's going to be near and east of Lake Jackson. So that is an area where we definitely had a ton of flooding. In fact, we did have a flash flood warning there that has come to an end. Also, we did have a flood advisory for southeastern portions of Harris County, where we picked up close to 2 inches of rain. So we had some flooded streets potentially there, and north of Palacios, close to 5 inches of rain over the past 12 hours. So we are certainly dealing with a situation where if we get any more rain, there could be more flooding issues. Also, we are still officially in that threat for severe weather for the rest of today. However, I think for the next update from the Storm Prediction Center, we'll likely be taken out of this risk for severe weather because we no longer are going to be dealing with a threat for severe storms, I believe, for the rest of today. The atmosphere kind of stabilizing as those storms have already rolled through. You can see some sunshine showing up across the Houston area, some puffy cumulus clouds out there, but overall looking good. Temperatures starting to heat up a bit more. In fact, getting close to 90 in Houston, right around 90 degrees for you in Katy and Sugar Land, and certainly toasty a little bit farther south, 86 degrees for you in Galveston and League City. When you factor in that humidity, it feels even hotter. It feels like it's triple digits for much of the area. So certainly be careful if you're heading out to the pool, the beach, going to run some errands, going to the park. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water and taking it easy out there. Not a ton of wind and not a ton of rain for the rest of today. Notice Futurecasts keeping 1 or 2 heavy downpours to the north of Houston up around Huntsville, Livingston, but by 7, 8 o'clock, even that is long gone. Now tomorrow, I think we start off fairly quiet. So if you're going out for breakfast around 8 a.m., I don't expect much in the way of rain, but by late morning into the afternoon, there will be the potential for some spotty showers and storms once again breaking out across the area. So for that reason, the Storm Prediction Center does once again have our area in that risk for an isolated strong to severe storm for tomorrow. We are going to have the risk for one or two of these storms popping up and becoming marginally severe. We're talking about hail possibly around quarter size, that would be around 1 inch, and the potential for some lightning and also the threat for some wind gusts close to 60 miles per hour. So that is something that we'll be monitoring for tomorrow, but the threat at least is low and it doesn't include the entire area. So that is the good news. So here's where the low severe threat will be for your Sunday, mainly during the afternoon, and it does include Houston, Tomball up towards Conroe, Bush Airport, LaPorte, all the way down to Galveston and up towards Cold Spring and Huntsville. Now, if you are over towards Sugar Land, Katy, Columbus, Brenham, you are not in that severe risk for Sunday just yet. So let's check out your forecast for the rest of the weekend. Tonight down to 77 degrees, mild, muggy, just a 20% chance that you'll have to get out of the pool if you're going to take a dip because of showers and storms. I have bumped that rain and storm chance back up to 40% for Sunday because it looks like we do have a decent shot for a few of those showers and storms developing, especially during the late morning and afternoon. So watch out for that. Outside of any storm threat tomorrow, those temperatures will be steamy, right around 90 degrees. Here's more good news. We do have one more day where we could have a few strong to severe storms on Sunday, but after that, that rain and storm chance really starting to diminish and decrease. We will go into a slightly hotter weather pattern, but a drier weather pattern from Monday really through much of next week. Only a 10 to 20% chance for an isolated shower or storm. Our precipitation outlook for June 7th through June 11th will show you that precip for the area is right around average or a little below average, which is nice. It has been so active in recent weeks. Of course, we had the huge derecho 100+ mile-per-hour winds rolling through the heart of Houston, just doing tons of damage, close to 1 million power outages, knocking out all of that glass out of the high-rise buildings across parts of downtown Houston. So we had that, but even since then, we've had several rounds of severe weather, so we could certainly use an extended break. So we will be drying out, I think, the first week or two of June for the most part. Temperatures, though, on the increase. So our precip will be near or slightly below normal, but temperatures of course, above normal. So hopefully you can handle the heat, but thank goodness it looks like we will finally get a break from a lot of this severe weather, at least after tomorrow, which of course is Sunday. So much of next week looking pretty quiet, but you will have to kind of deal with the heat and make sure that you're staying safe out there and keeping cool. So once again, day one of our 2024 hurricane season for the Atlantic. All is quiet out there now in the Atlantic, but of course we will be tracking it every day, and of course right around 4 p.m. every day we'll have a detailed update for you on what's happening in the tropics and also what's going on locally. Hopefully though we can keep most of this rain out of here for the next couple of weeks. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Remeisha Shade. Have a great evening.